Hi, this is Denise.
Hey, this is Maggie.
Welcome to our podcast, Candor and Courage at Work.
Denise and I have known each other for a long time, a couple of decades, HR pros, and we thought it might be helpful if we got together and shared some of the things that we've learned along the way.
That's right, Maggie. Many struggle with being candid and being courageous, and we just want to use what we've learned to help you use those traits in your daily work life.
Here's hoping that makes you more successful. And here we go. Well, Denise, guess what?
What?
We are officially celebrating the 1-year mark of Candor and Courage at Work.
Oh, cheers.
Cheers. Very good. It's great to be sitting down at this juncture and thinking back on the journey. And that's really what this episode's about. So, you know, when you announced a couple of years ago that we were doing a podcast together.
I have very limited memory of that.
Well, I remember it clearly.
Well, I trust your memory more than mine right now.
Because I was not going to disavow that statement in that public setting. But it led us on a journey, and we spent about a year.
Yes.
Getting together.
Yes.
Intentionally talking through what we wanted to do. Why? Why did we want to do a podcast? What was our why? And, you know, determining that availing our listeners of the 70 years of combined HR experience that we offer in an effort to enable them to be better leaders by learning about the experiences that we'd had and some of our fails and some of our successes and those kinds of things. And then even the mechanics from selecting the equipment that we're using and determining our great partner in Madison and Speakeasy Productions and how frequently we wanted to issue a broadcast. You know, I mean, all of those things really combine to culminate in the We're Not Ready in October 2024, you might recall.
I was just waiting for a pause to say, you know, when you select a partner in life, no matter which area of your life it is so important to find somebody that is the yin to your yang, because if it had been up to me, we would be here a year from now still talking about when we were going to go live. And Maggie is the one that said, nope, we're ready. We're doing it. And I said, okay, here we go. And here we are a year later. And I'm eternally grateful to you for pushing me out of my comfort zone.
Yeah. Well, I had there was a method to the madness, and it worked well for us. And so here we are a year later. And as we talked about what we thought we wanted to do in this episode, coming at it from the standpoint of what have we learned from each other? Mm-hmm. Because everybody who's listened to this or knows me well knows that I tend to practice brutal honesty.
Not 100% true, but I believe there is a little kernel of truth in there.
Yeah, well. And so I've learned, a lot about candor from you and your passion for candor. And candor and courage go hand in hand. And that's really the premise of what we wanted to do, why we wanted to do it, and the intentionality of adding at work to the title of the podcast, because candor and courage also go hand in hand in our personal lives. But our context, our target audience, those that we're hoping to help the most are in the professional ranks.
Yes, because those are the workplace is where the risk is usually higher.
Right.
Not to say that you don't have a personal relationship with somebody that you could lose if you were brutally honest. But yeah, we wanted to focus at work because that's where my experience came from. Not so much my personal life, but in my professional life.
Same here. And in thinking about the instances that we've touched on over the course of the podcasts that we've recorded, and some of those stories that we've told off air that may show up in a future podcast. It's really been in the work context, and we are a work-oriented society. I mean, the very basic of Reasons of why we do what we do often involve food, clothing, and shelter.
Mm-hmm.
And so creating risk in that environment's the last thing that most of us want to do. And it's the first thing I think that really contributes to our professional growth.
I agree. Good old Maslow. It always
So,
goes back to him, right?
That's it. That's it.
All right.
The bottom of the pyramid.
So shall we get started?
Let's do it.
Okay. So it's Candor and Courage at Work. So I'm going to have you start on the Candor, and then I'll jump in when it's time to talk about courage.
Okay. All right. Very good. Well, I went back and listened to and looked at some of the episodes that we had done. And I'm not going to call out all the episodes that really were gems of insights for me, but I do want to start with calling out episode 2 because it's so fundamental to understanding candor. And so if we've got listeners that are coming in now, and this is maybe the first time that they're listening, I encourage folks to go back and start there because that was so insightful in laying the groundwork and the foundation for really understanding what candor is. And some of the things that resonate with me that you have shared around candor, including the fact that all of us need feedback if we want to be successful. And the absence of getting that feedback, and especially constructive, caring feedback, inhibits our ability to grow professionally. So we need somebody that's going to be candid with us. And in turn, if we expect to grow others, which is the responsibility of a leader, is to grow and develop others, then we've got to be prepared to provide that. Some of the other things around candor that I really hadn't thought about until you've highlighted them are the fact that when you care enough about a person and helping them grow and develop, when you care enough about the person, that's a sufficient basis to want to be clear and providing them with that feedback that they need to hear so that they can do a better job.
Yeah, I think for some people, they just get so nervous about what am I risking by being candid? And again, I don't like the word truthful because I feel like candor is, the ultimate reason for that conversation. But I feel like they just get so hung up on, gosh, do they want to hear my opinion or those other questions? And for me, it's just, I know at one point in my career, I craved feedback, especially starting out as a new leader, and nothing has changed in all these years. The folks that I currently work with, they want to hear from me now as the senior leader, how am I doing? Because my opinion matters. And so it really is, I think, for me, and I think what you're picking up on is, it is absolutely our jobs as leaders of others to provide feedback that is candid and designed to help them grow.
Yep. And that just came shining through as you really helped educate us on what candor is. And of course, I love the fact that candor is kind.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk in a couple of different episodes about the difference between kind and nice. So I encourage our listeners, if they haven't already benefited from those conversations, to seek them out and give them another listen. And then I want to call out episode 6 as well.
Okay.
Because episode 6 was the episode where you really walked us through the importance of really preparing mindfully. We've spent a good amount of time, you have in particular, in building the foundation around having a trusting relationship and developing your own reputation and the expectation in others that you're going to be respectfully candid with them. But planning the discussion, really getting at the how-to, being candid.
Yes, and I'm going to jump a little bit forward here and say that it feels to me that having that path or that plan worked out in your mind is how you summon the courage to be candid. And then, like you said earlier, those two things go so hand in hand with each other. But being candid for the first time, you've got to summon your courage, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
Yes, it does take that.
But yeah, you need to have that, and definitely, that is one of the lessons that I pounded home in those Candor episodes is the need to have an established relationship of trust or the beginnings of trust before you start to be candid with people.
Yes, and that's probably one of the distinguishing factors around me thinking in my mind's eye about those instances where I've been brutally honest, because I have sometimes waded in with that approach regardless of the status of the relationship, and created a probably worse situation for not having been so intentionally mindful around where's my relationship at. Even one of your more recent questions around, are they really ready for me to be candid? Assessing the readiness of the listener. But one of my favorite quotes from Denise thus far is, at work, you do not have the right to remain silent. And I hope that that resonates with anyone listening to this as much as it resonated with me and resonates with me now again today, and reflecting on how critical it is for us as leaders to not withhold our feedback.
So important. And I mean, even if I, again, jump ahead a little bit to the courage episodes where you talked about if you had the power to, if you saw something and had the power to change it, would you do that? And that for me is the essence of the point you just made. I see my colleague, or I see my boss, or I see my team making a mistake. And if I care enough about them, I'm going to figure out the kind, respectful way to convey to them what I see and allow them to decide what they want to do with it. But the act of just sharing what I see and the impact that what they're doing has on themselves as their brand, maybe the team, maybe the company, that is so important to convey that. And I'm not here to redirect your behavior. I mean, I want you to be successful. Ultimately, the listener has to be receiving of that and ready to make the change.
Yeah. And to that end, what I'll wrap up with on Candor that really resonated with me is the importance of seeking feedback. So not only are we endeavoring to set the example, model the behavior that we want to see in providing feedback, but also in seeking that feedback from someone that we trust.
Correct.
That maybe isn't super critical out of the gates, so we can go at it
like
a
your
little
example
easier.
And
But
talk about brutal. How did it feel to get brutal honesty from the person on that meeting that you referenced?
yeah, that was just an interesting experience. We just didn't have enough of a relationship, or maybe that person felt like we did. But nonetheless, the observation was one that was chosen and again, was in public, which would have been far better, in my opinion, to have been a private, let me pull you aside and let you know what I'm seeing kind of comment. But at any rate, I have learned a lot. I find myself, thinking about, well, how would Denise approach this when I've encountered instances within my world and the work that I'm doing now in needing to be candid, respectfully candid with someone. And so I think I'm making progress in that regard. But part of that is really now also looking at the flip side of that and seeking the feedback from those folks. Like, was that helpful?
Correct.
After the fact, when the dust is settled and they've made whatever decisions they're going to make around their behaviors, going back and asking, was that helpful? Was there another way that I could have approached that more effectively with you?
Imagine just asking the question, how did it turn out for you? Because that's another way for you to show up and say, I care about you, to not only pontificate about my opinion that I'm giving you,
Right.
but to plug in with that person and say, hey, that conversation, how did that go?
Yep.
And continue that dialogue, continue building the trust. So
Fabulous.
I absolutely love the example that you talked about where you got the feedback, which landed harshly in some points, because those moments for me, even believing that I am, the queen of candor, resonates with me to remember to be empathetic and think through how is this person going to take what I'm having to say? Am I choosing the best delivery to give this so that my intention of helping them is what they feel when they hear the thing that may be hard to hear?
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I am not the only giver of knowledge here in this partnership. I mean, and that is why I think Maggie and I have remained close colleagues and now close friends, is that, it has been back and forth. And for her with courage, I just want to go, in my mind, I always go to Covey. And I think begin with the end in mind. But before I go there, I want to talk back to your comment on why we started this and why we are leaders. And that is practicing candor and courage builds trust.
Yes.
So when we talk about practicing candor and courage builds trust, that's the foundation of all successful relationships, is building trust. And certainly
Completely.
At work, that is what we need to do. Okay, so I'm beginning with the end in mind, okay? And the phrase that I know that you used, and I believe came from the book, and I apologize for not remembering the author of the book, but when have you felt the fear and did it anyway?
Yeah, Dr. Susan Jeffers.
Susan Jeffers, sorry, Dr. Jeffers. And in that episode, which was episode 5, you talked about if you knew you could handle anything, you could. To sit there and think, okay, I have to do something that requires courage. For me, it's taking that deep breath, feeling that fear, acknowledging it, planning the way I'm going to approach the situation, whether it's a hard conversation or some other physical action, and saying, and I use my term power through. And one of the things that I took from the phrase feel the fear and do it anyway is, okay, I'm going to visualize where I'm going to get to, what the other side of this situation is going to look like.
Right.
And I want the other side. So I'm going to take a deep breath and I'm going to plan how I'm going to get to that other side. And persistence and what I call powering through is the action that I need to take.
That's fantastic.
And so for me too, and I believe I talked a lot about that in episode 5, but going back to episode 4, the reality that it is not always big, bold decisions, that acts of courage, the smaller acts of courage, are sometimes the hardest, but they're also can be the easiest to do. So when you think of courage and think of, running into a burning building or taking some sort of high level of risk, physical risk, it's not that. It really is those quiet moments when you are with yourself and you say, I have a choice to make here. And I need to look at myself in a 360 perspective and say my moral, my spiritual, my psychological, all of those examples of courage. I have to make a decision here that's going to best suit me, best serve me, and I have to say it's going to be tough to do this, but I want to be on the other side of this and gain the benefits of the other side. So I'm going to have to plan my steps, take a deep breath, and power through.
I just had an epiphany as you were sharing that. And it goes back to something that I said many, many times over the course of my career. And that's to be true to myself.
Correct.
And so that commitment and then following through on that commitment is an act of courage.
Right. Because how easy is it to make a different choice, to say nothing or do nothing and stay where you feel safe? And that is also going back to episode 4, when we talked about overcoming fear. And the basis is if you're never afraid, you can't experience courage. There is no learning. There is no stretch of your possibilities if you're not willing to take that first step. So fear is natural. The reluctance to do something is natural. But now looking inward and saying, what is it that I want to get out of this? And taking that first step is so key to getting to that other side. And I think to speak to the do of courage, and the fact that it doesn't have to be these big, bold decisions or steps. I love the advice that you gave about simply speaking up at meetings and the need to just to take that step is the beginnings of building your courage muscle. So I really, and again, I'm a planner when it comes to the actions I'm going to take, the conversations I'm going to have. And I remember that was episode 7, where we talked about envisioning the meeting, what might come up, what might be said, what's the response that I want to give to that. But the fact of just speaking up is where innovation and change can occur, if only to basically put yourself out there as a deep thinker or a smart person or somebody who has great insight into the issue that's being discussed at the meeting.
It can really be a game changer. And one thing that acting courageously does, it encourages others to act courageously as well. So that speaking up in a meeting has a cascade effect beyond those things that you've just described.
Yeah. And I'm going to end it with this. I absolutely loved, and this is again going back to episode 7, where you said, I'm doing right by the people in my world. And that's the intentionality. And that resonates, I think, through thoughts and actions. If I'm going in with the right mindset, the right purpose of why I'm doing what I'm doing, there's a higher chance of benefit for the person or even myself in doing that courageous act. But I will end with this, and I think that this is so, so important to all of us when it comes to our own moral convictions, our own character, our own brand in our workplace. The only thing I have is my credibility.
Yeah.
And so I believe through those acts of courage is how you fortify your own credibility, your own character, but that the visual picture of what you're putting forth is how others see you as courageous, and you become the model to those folks when they're confronted with an issue or thought or action that they need to take action on.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome. And that pulling that together and in practicing respectful candor and being courageous when those opportunities arise, which again may go hand in hand. That just often does.
yeah, so what I would say is, and I know we both talked about this throughout the episodes, throughout a year. Can you imagine? It's been a year.
That's amazing.
But find a mentor, find a partner, an accountability partner, or somebody that can help you be a sounding board for these things. And we hope that we are your sounding board. So don't forget to reach out to us on Candor and Courage at Work and connect with us, because we would love to hear your stories. We've loved the stories that we've heard throughout the year.
Sure have.
The folks that we've met, the folks that have given us feedback that our message has been on target. We thank our listeners, the listeners that we've acquired since beginning. More more than I ever dreamed possible. So
Yeah.
I thought it would just be my family and a couple close, or maybe my team that felt like they had to listen.
Right.
But no, it's grown beyond what I envisioned. And so to you, my friend, a year of candor and courage. May we continue into the next year.
Hear, hear.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today for Candor and Courage at Work.
We hope you found some inspiration and encouragement in today's episode.
For more information or to connect with us, visit our website, candorandcourageatwork.com, and be sure to download future episodes wherever you listen.